Powerline, Nicholas, Book 1, by Derekica Snake. Read by Derekica Snake. In the Wild. Life is cheap in the wild. The wild is the name the invading civilization gave to the territory and peoples that they couldn't bring to heel. They never bothered to find out about our clan systems, laws, or culture. They simply took what they wanted, and if they couldn't obtain it, they killed it or destroyed it. We were doing enough killing amongst ourselves. My given name is Nicholas, and I knew how little life was valued because I watched my father, Nicola, die in front of my eyes when I was small enough that I didn't even reach my mother's hip. There were some flashes of happiness that remain with me, of peaceful times with my parents at our homestead out in the woods. There are some flashes of happiness that remain with me, of peaceful times with my parents at our homestead deep in the woods, laughter and smiles, and the certainty of absolute security in my father's arms. But that has been overshadowed with something so horrendous. It's a nightmare that's sadly comforting. My father died, bloody, torn to shreds, but he kept his dignity and defiance until the ground was awash in red. My childhood was stained with blood, but my mother always asserted my father died as a man. Few get that chance. Once Nicola was dead, knowledge of his existence was forbidden under punishment of banishment, or worse, which left another scar on a soul so young. Before I was 10, I should have been nothing more than a network of raised and jagged scars, but a mother's unconditional love keeps that much darkness at bay. Killing is a rite of passage in the wild. I killed a man when I turned 16. I killed the man who killed my father. The man who tried to drive away the memory of Nicola from the clan, but he couldn't do it because every passing day my face turned more and more into that of his former enemy. If he could have gotten Nicola to deny being my father in front of all those witnesses, I could have been disposed of, leaving that man free to take my mother back to the fortress and marry her. As it was, my parents' union couldn't be broken. I was officially recorded in the Kells with the given name of Nicholas, and mother didn't have to marry him. I became the source of his irritation and constant reminder that the man who killed my father couldn't always get what he wanted. Why? It was simple. Power. The man who killed my father needed mother's power to keep the throne, to protect the kingdom and defend the peoples. I have no doubt he would have strangled me at any opportunity, but mother made it clear that if he moved against me, she would move against him, and she had more to back her up than a threat with men and swords. The manipulation of energies through sheer force of will is called by the uneducated a whispered and feared word: magic. My mother was the strongest witch in the territory. It was through brutal force of arms that the man who killed my father expanded his lands, but it was through my mother's power that he held those conquered people. The king and the witch were normally married, but Nicola met mother first, and they fell in desperate love in one single day. They ran for years settling on the outskirts of the kingdom until they were caught, and in the end, father was killed and we were brought back to the center of the kingdom. So I grew up lean, strong, and angry because, true to the man who killed my father's word, I was left totally alone. I might as well have been a branded criminal. I was so ostracized by the rest of the fortress. Families were destroyed because as children we innocently played together. It didn't take me long to figure out I was best off on my own. This turned out to be a bitter blessing when I came into my own power. This isolation policy allowed mother and I to keep it a secret. The elders thought there was a possibility I had inherited mother's gift, but when no typical magical ability was detected on the appointed days of testing, I was left to my own devices again. Little did others know that I had inherited my father's gift. He was a latent. The way mother explained what a latent was to me was that I was like one of the great trees out in the forest. Its roots ran deep into the earth to find the nourishment it needed, and so was the way of the latent. The natural energies in the soil, and the trees, and all living things could be drawn from and channeled. Those in harmony, a witch and a latent, could work together seamlessly and tirelessly, but such a harmony was a rarity. But the mere threat of it terrified those in authority. As I grew older, I understood there were other reasons for my father's death, but this threat of harmony was the main one. It was known within the circles of authority that Nicola was a latent, of low skill, but still able to find those energies. My father was Mother's battery, so the magic she used in battle had none of the weakening effect, since she was drawing directly from him and he was siphoning natural energies for her. However, ultimate power, not wielded by the ultimate ruler, is too dangerous. The man who killed my father was never going to allow them to live in peace. He couldn't. One day, Mother found me playing with colored lights rising from the ground. I was making them twist and spin like colorful ribbons to keep the boredom away. I remember Mother's face pale as she warned me to never show anyone what I could do. Any witch could use a latent, whether the latent wanted it or not. Latents were few and far between, and every king coveted a power source. If a king could not bind a witch to the throne, the next best thing was to bind a latent and have witches vie for the opportunity to use the battery. The intensity of the warning stuck with me, not because she was mad at me, but from the absolute sorrow and fear in her eyes. I promised to keep my secret. Once the elders deemed me a non-witch, the fortress people began to interact with me. I might have grown up apart from these people, but I knew what was going on. Fear kept most away, but I was the poor little lonely boy of the most influential woman in the kingdom. False friends suddenly appeared at my side, but my angry heart really didn't care. I had watched festivals from the darkness of the walls or from the forest. I had seen how they mistreated each other when it wasn't for their benefit. There was always a motive for anything someone did. I learned not to take things at face value. I took weapons training and the discipline of the soldier because I refused to be helpless. It turned out that I had a talent with the sword and dagger, and since I knew the woods better than those who grew up inside the fortress walls, I was also included in hunts and patrols. At night, in the privacy of our home, Mother taught me what she could. I had been so young when Father was killed. There had been no indication that I had inherited his gift. He taught her how to draw on him, and even this little bit of knowledge was better than nothing. The first experiment was a disaster. I didn't tap into the natural flow of the land, so my personal energy was used instead. I woke up from a fever 3 days later. After that, Mother insisted that I try all my exercises on my own. It was only after 3 months of training on a specific technique did we attempt another test draw. If I could tap the natural energy around me, the draw was nothing more than a fluttering sensation in my stomach. If I couldn't tap the energy, I was more or less in a feverish sleep for days. Near the end, I was proud that more often than not, I could face the draw successfully. We were able to keep my abilities secret for 3 years. I don't know how the man who killed my father found out about us, but suddenly he tried to kill me. I killed him instead. After that, I had to run because there were too many of his followers still around. Mother took her vengeance on them for our years of torment and isolation and made sure I got underway without chase. With the man who killed my father's death, it came to light just how talented and dangerous I was. Even without my mother's magic watching over me, I knew they would think twice about following me. I was a skilled woodsman and hunter, so I wanted for nothing. It took me weeks to move from the deepest interior of the wild to the artificial lights of the colony. Life was cheap in the shambles, the no-man's land outside of the colony borders, if you had nothing to offer. I had options. To survive the wild, you have to be strong. To outwit the shamblers, you have to be savvy. I was both. I was going to take on this new challenge in a big way. I never thought that one day I would be nothing more than a darling battery to the highest ranked and feared battle mage in the service of the Miradryl Empire. It goes to show that life is cheap everywhere.